Probably 90% of the people who would care speak English, but not this language. It's not in English. Visited the bus station to arrange for a ticket out this morning from Kotor up to Dumator National Park. The Slavenko says I definitely should spend some time at, so I will, instead of going to Var, which I'm going to do on my next trip if I do a next trip. But anyway, I thought I would stop and go through this ruin just outside the south gate again this morning from this direction. Some nuances of what I'd seen the first time I looked at it, and some significant differences. One is this: if you notice a narrow wall there and a narrow gap between it, I'm guessing that this means this structure here was built after that structure and on top of it, but I don't really know. Groove in it that starts shallow here and deeper here, which looks like it should be a drainage, perhaps from what was this room that we're walking alongside of. And notice that we've got two rooms here. But why would they build a second wall? These are walls close together here, very close here, there, very close again. More distance now, a room we would think, and then it gets what seems to be normal. But here's what I found most interesting. In the center here is what appears to be a significant size room, and then wrapping it an L-shaped room, and then this room here. But what's most interesting, and here are the walls for this, but what's most interesting are these large blocks of stone, which I believe are tombstones. The ability, of course, are these shields or perhaps family crests on many of these, some distinct, some indistinct. They wrap around these three buildings, just like this. Except that there you see there's a small little building. What its purpose was, I don't know, unless maybe it was the entrance to this area. I have no clue. Family crest, I assume that's what it is, but there above it a panel that's recessed down and then engraved with letters, as you would expect on a tombstone. Of how this is laid out, a cavity and then those stones on top. Now in this instance the stones sit within the surrounding border of stones. We'll see a little different method of doing this later. I'm guessing that underneath these stones would have been the graves of these people, presumably men. I'm not sure that any of these cultures buried women in the same fashion with the same reverence as men who were quote-unquote the warriors. Reverence and credibility in the community from that pursuit. And here now you can see though that seems to continue that pattern over to this building here, which we'll explore in a few moments after we finished with this. Dark stone, or just was weathered somehow. That incised area is definitely red. Whether that was an original color in there, I don't know, but it is unique. We can certainly see a lot of letters there, but no family crest. Well, unless this part right at the crack portion represents a portion of such. Notice here that the stone has been cut in such a fashion with a groove, with a hole, to probably hold a vertical piece of stone, perhaps a tombstone. Building over here, which again serves the same function, it appears. We'll get up on top and look at it. This is a much smaller building, and it seems very compact, and in the way that it's used these stones. Here looks to be like an altar, and perhaps that was. One of the things, a nuance that was interesting as I pursued this, is that stone with a ring in it. Why that? Was it once vertical for holding livestock, or is there a hole underneath it that was for the purpose of gaining access? We got that inside the border strategy for these large stones, some of which still have very nicely incised lettering, with then spaces that are filled up because of the irregular placement and perhaps size of these tombstone border combinations are filled up with this kind of design element. Example of what we've been looking at. Heavily bordered, a border around where the inscription would be. There, of course, the shield or family crest, I assume, and then an elaborate border with the four-petaled flower as a motif. And notice that this one has two rings in it, presumably for lifting up that stone. Stone with just a light engraving. Appears to have been one that held some kind of statue or something that was locked in place with that, and then later with these iron rods, or even then with them. This looks to have a long shield, different than what we've seen, if in fact that's what it's representing, and I can't be sure. Almost looked like a profile of a man, but I don't think it is. It's more irregular and yet somehow symmetrical, vertically left to right. What may be a grave site in waiting, filled in with a decorative temporary motif. But certainly the ones in this room, as opposed to that bigger room over there,